Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new season of racing here at the Middle of the Pack Racing League, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, folks, we are back. 2026 is here, and after we dipped our toes away from motorsport at the end of 2025 with the completion of the Fall into P Cup Championship, and what a championship it was, we focused all the time and efforts on the Porsche 992.1 GT3 Cup car. We are back, and we are here to kick off 2026 in style at the MPRL. But what exactly have we gone for our first season of racing this year? Well, you might be able to hear the roar of screaming machinery in the background every so often. We have gone to the GT class, but not your modern day GT3s. Oh no, we've gone for something a little bit more professional. We've gone for the cars that debuted back in 1999 and finished their time on the racing circuit as a 2023. We have gone to the GT Endurance class, or GTE. Indeed, you're going to be hearing the sonorous roar of V8s and six-cylinder machinery all the way up to 5.5 litres if naturally aspirated, and we have got plenty of racing action for you. 8 rounds, 2 weeks per round, and indeed as our drivers get set and ready to go racing today, we could not be happier to see the MPRL doing GTE, and this should be an absolutely incredible season of racing ahead. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this post-round broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in today on the one only place you can catch all the racing action from the Middle of the Pack Racing League year in, year out, and as of course none other Walsh Productions if you go to youtube.com. Indeed, search for what is Walsh Productions or PWP, and you can be tuning in there and catching all of the fortnightly racing action. Now, we should do a bit of housekeeping and point out the broadcasts you're going to be seeing for this season are post-round. They are set to premiere as if they were live, so that means the race action itself is not actually live. It occurred early this week on Wednesday the 25th of February 2026. We're bringing it to you as if it were live today on this Saturday the 28th of February. That means we do not know who is the fastest driver in the practice session that's currently coming to a close, nor the upcoming qualifying session, or most importantly, we do not know the outcome of our one and only race today. And that's how it will be throughout the entirety of the season. In the commentary, if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds. And I'm so happy to be back. And a huge thank you to Middle Pack Racing League for allowing me to continue to work with them. Indeed, it's crazy to think that come the end of this year, it'll be 5 years since I joined in the commentary booth all those years ago for the 2021 TCR Championship, if my memory serves me correctly, and we're back once again. Time has absolutely flown on by, and I couldn't be happier to be in the commentary booth here with the Middle Pack Racing League. But enough about me, let's focus on our racing. And what is our schedule for today? Well, times in Eastern Standard Time, that's EST, or Universal Coordinate Time -5, UTC -5, and as we can see in approximately what will be about 8 minutes time, we're making our way into our first qualifying session of the season at 8 this evening. 10 minutes in duration, all drives out there in an isolated instance of the circuit or lone qualifying, and they'll be able to go for pole position, after which we'll then make our way to the grid for our race of today. Is of course a 45-minute sprint race due to get underway at approximately just after 8:20. But as we come into this season, well, let's fill you in with all the details you need to know. And firstly, of course, let's tell you where exactly we're going to be racing for the course of our 8 rounds. And as we can see, we have got our season split into 2 cups, as we normally would here at the Middle of the Pack Racing League. We begin the first 4 rounds in the United States of America with the US Cup, a celebration of circuits which the GT machines raced at over their extensive history, the best part of 24 years, and will be open up proceedings here today at the Road Atlanta Raceway. Known in full as the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, this circuit in the US state of Georgia is an absolute rollercoaster ride, but more on that shortly. After this round, we'll then be making our way all the way to the state of New York for Watkins Glen International, and it will be to Road America in the picturesque countryside of Wisconsin on the 25th of March, and then we will be heading to Sebring and seeing our drivers take flight at the old Hendricks Army Air Base for what will be a round to remember, a feature race round in Florida on the 8th of April. Then we take a mid-season break and we return to the racing as of the 22nd of April, so there's no extended break as such, but we do split the season in half there. We will tick off our US Cup, and then we'll make our way into the Euro Cup, which will be a celebration of some of the premier racing circuits on the European continent, most of which you see here were raced by GTEs in history. Circuit of Barcelona Catalunya will open up proceedings on the 22nd of April there for a sprint race, after which in round number 6 we make our way to Italy for the Imola circuit, or the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari as it's known in full. Then from the 6th of May to the 20th of May we make our way to the UK for the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, and then we'll be bringing the curtain down for our second of our feature races and completing the Euro Cup on the 3rd of June at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, and that's where we will be declaring your overall drivers' champions, on top of the fact we'll be declaring also your Euro Cup champions. That's right, our drivers are going to be competing for Cup glory in both the US Cup and the Euro Cup, but they'll also be competing for the overall Drivers' Championship rights in the respective driver classes. But hold up a second, if I've said drivers and I've said driver classes, we need to introduce our drivers as well, and we've got a good mix of drivers, many of which you'll remember, some of whom you'll never have seen before, and let's give them all a fair introduction. We start off in the Pro class then, and we're going to see 11 competitors on the grid for this season, albeit not all of them can make it full-time, but you will see them every so often in the season, if not the entirety of the season. Your leading competitor there, Jason Landry. Well, definitely a staple of middle-of-the-pack Racing League series. Unfortunately, had to step away towards the end of 2025, and he's going to be on the grid for the occasional round this season. Indeed, he couldn't keep himself away when we said we're going to be racing GTEs. You'll see him out there in the number 5. We'll also see the newcomers in the form of Eric Ligai and Taylor Bookout. We welcome them to the grid. We're very happy to have them going racing with us, and we also do see the arrival of none other than Matt Best there. And in fact, well, those are some of the old teams that you're going to see them racing in, and in fact, we might be able to update you on the new teams that are going to be racing in there, as all of our drivers, of course, have shaped things up and shaken themselves up from their previous teams. And there we go, an update on screen, and what we can see, Bookout will be joining Team Bearpoke for this season, so join the likes of James Logston and Matt Best once again back to the Texas Speed sim racing outfit. Shahi Zahir and Gabriel Ferrero, they're on your left hand side there in the 21 and 24. Gabriel Ferrero being a newcomer, where Shahi Zahir has made his way from Am to Prime and now to Pro for this season. So very happy to see him in our top class in the number 21. We also do have the return of Blake Phillips there for the Pit Club Sim Racing, as well as James Logston for Team Bearpoke. Julian Jones is back. Chad Henson, new to the grid, but he is an absolute GT enthusiast. Indeed, you'll see him in many of the iRacing official Sprint Series races for the GTEs, as you will in other series around the globe. So very happy to see the American driver on the grid. And we also do welcome to the grid the number 95 of David Sluter. Not able to join today, but we expect him to be on the grid as the rounds get underway. Meanwhile, in the Pro-Am class, we have 2 classes for this season. We have the Pros. They are the quickest of all, the highest I-rating drivers. And then we have the Prams. Not as quick, perhaps, or not as highly rated in terms of I-ratings, but don't underestimate them. A few of these drivers you'll know. Jermaine Warren being one of them, right at the beating heart of the middle-of-the-pack racing team, and as part of the organisation team for this series. We're very grateful to have him on board, as always, not just in terms of being on the grid, but also running things as smoothly as he does. And then the 216 of Donald Sepek, new to the grid, but for Team Bearpoke, we look forward to seeing him on the grid giving it his all. And then we do have Mark Senegal. You couldn't have a middle-of-the-pack Racing League series without the Canadian driver, or indeed the entire Canadian team of Sunday GT Turtles, and he is back in full force once again with Roger Ganesh, and also they do have Carl Peterson alongside them, and well, it'll be absolutely brilliant to see the trio given that they're all in the Pram class. But it's been rude of me to jump between Senegal and Ganesh without talking about the man between the two in the 228. That'll be Joshua Cooper, the privateer, and we wish him all the best on his debut. And then looking to the right hand side, we've already mentioned Carl Peterson, so we come one further down, and we do of course have the very talented livery designer and also sim racing photographer of none other than Jason Lim for Glass and Steel Photography and Design. He's back on the grid once again. Very happy to see Jason out there in the 261. We'll also see Tom Bryce back on the grid once again, the privateer driving the 272. And then Bill DaCosta returns for Team Bearpoke. And we also have the return of the much loved privateer of Glenn Bratton. So plenty of familiar faces in the Pram class and also a couple of newcomers. And we wish them all the best of luck, regardless of what class and how new they are to the grid. We wish all 21 of the drivers the best of luck as they get ready to go racing today. But where exactly are we racing today? Well, of course, we are racing at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. The Grand Prix layout or the full course layout, depending on how you want to refer to it. Well, this circuit located near the town of Brazelton in the county of Hull in the US state of Georgia. And well, what a circuit is. 2.5 more miles in length and 12 corners at its heart. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant circuit maps, the absolutely fantastic track maps that come within it. Because this circuit is an absolutely brazen one. It is a roller coaster of a ride, and a two-dimensional edge does not do it justice in terms of how much elevation change is packed into its length. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is, instead of trying to walk you through this image, we'll rather instead take the opportunity to make our way straight into qualifying, and that's where we'll explore the circuit in full detail. But just before we go to qualifying, a quick reminder of our rules, because of course there's got to be some rules for this season. Now, in terms of setups, our drivers are running a fixed setup as provided by the Middle of the Pack Racing League administration, and fuel loads have been restricted to 50%, so therefore this is a fixed setup series rather than an open setup series. Our drivers do not have to worry about trying to tweak the setup of their car all the way through to each and every round, and that's going to become quite pertinent because of the news we've recently had from iRacing official dev blogs, whereby we're going to be seeing a major overhaul of the GT class in 2026 Season 2, so in approximately what will be 4 weeks' time. So therefore they'll be getting familiar with the cars, but they will figure out the fact that the setups are going to change, but of course the MPRL will provide the updated setup to our drivers when it does get introduced. In terms of our qualifying format, a closed format will be used, which does mean all the drivers take to an isolated instance of the circuit. They do not have to worry about being around each other and potentially having to try and get slipstream off each other, or the other way, of course, worrying about stepping on each other's toes. So that's definitely going to be very helpful for our drivers. And in terms of the sprint race, well, each race shall start by a rolling start, as it is an edition of the Middle of the Pack Racing League and indeed GTE Racing. We're doing it as historically as we possibly can. We're staying in period, and each driver has one fast repair available should they need to use it. And should a driver get to 10 or more instant points, we become a bit stricter this season compared to our previous instant point counts. Well, if they get to 10, they will receive a drive-through penalty for their misdemeanors. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to head back to circuit side. And as we do, we make our way into qualifying. So 10 minutes, and here we go. All drivers begin to make their way out of the circuit, including, of course, the Ferrari 488 GTE Evo of James Logston. But as he makes his way on out, well, let's give you the quick breakdown here. Firstly, let's talk about GTE. What do you need to know about them? You're probably used to GT3. GT3 racing, of course, being the premier four-wheel racing series in the world currently with regards to closed cockpit racing. Formula 1 being the equivalent in what would be open-wheel racing or Super Formula if you go towards the Asian continent. However, these machines from 1999 to 2023, they debuted in 1999 as the GT class in the World Le Mans Series. But as they made their way through time, these cars have picked up a huge popularity. Now, compared to their more modern GT3 counterparts, these cars have approximately 50 more horsepower, so you are looking between around 550 to 600 brake horsepower. Oh, on top of that as well, they do have a significantly more refined aerodynamics. They are based off of road cars, these machines. However, there are a lot more liberal, will be liabilities and liberalities they could take with regards to the cars compared to your modern-day GT3 racer. And therefore, what it does mean is that these cars, they were based on available-for-sale road cars, featuring at least 2 doors and 2 seats, albeit the engines were modified variants of the production road car engines, as James Logston, they're definitely modifying his line at turn number 12 and get it quite wrong. As we do see Blake Phillips make his way out. It does look as though, in fact, we have got an open qualifying session here, not a closed one. So therefore, I think we've been misinformed. We do apologise for that, ladies and gentlemen. We thought we've read the rule book correctly, but perhaps we haven't. As all drivers trying to get some tyre temperature in, well, this is definitely going to keep things even spicier with regards to this qualifying session as they make the way on down. As Blake Phillips heads on down here as well. Well, what else can we tell you about these GTEs? Well, and we can also say is the fact that these cars have none other and weighs a minimum weight of 1,245 kilograms or 2,745 pounds, and that includes the driver and fuel, subject to the balance of performance. And in terms of the engine displacement, well, if they're naturally aspirated cars, such as, for example, the Porsche 911 RSR, yes, that 911 RSR, the 9,000 RPM screamer that we used to hear many a time going down the straights of Le Mans, well, if they were naturally with natural aspiration, then they could go up to 5.5 litres, and you'll see that with the Porsche and also the infamous Corvette C8R GTE. However, if they do have forced induction or turbos, such as, for example, the Ferraris, and we do see here Bilman da Costa in his Ferrari 488 GTE Evo, well, what we'll tell you with those is that it's up to 4 litres, and other cars in that category include the Ford GT GTE, in which we do have Julian Jones here being one of only 2 Ford GTs making his way on around. And we also do have, of course, none other than the absolute giga grille of the BMW M8. Indeed, the car that picked up a bit of a notorious meme with regards to the frontage, but right now definitely a car not to be underestimated. The Giga machine making its way on around here, and Blake Phillips at the helm of one of 4 BMWs here today. Jason Landry in an all-gold one here making his way on through, and well, that's definitely one way to make an impression with regards to the livery. A very shiny livery at that, so he makes his way down the back straight, and well, to be fair, he has been a gold star in the series, has Jason Landry, so we can't fault him for running a livery such as this. But also what you need to know about these cars is the fact they have traction control, or TCS, that helps them with engaging the throttle coming out of corners. What they do not have, however, is anti-lock braking systems. They have no ABS, these cars. You have to do ABS manually, which is you have to modulate the brake yourself. And if you're able to modulate it well enough, well, you'll be the best on the brakes, and therefore you can be king in the corners. But that's what makes these cars more challenging compared to their GT3 modern counterparts. GT3 cars, of course, being brought into IMSA as of 2022. These cars being raced last in 2021 in the IMSA SportsCar Championship and in World Endurance Championship, which was they raced for the last time. Well, it was in 2023 that they saw their final conclusion races at Bahrain, and then they were replaced as a 2024 by the GT3 category. But the idea was that these cars required a lot more professional standards racing to drive because of the missing nature nature of the anti-lock braking system, and also what some very aggressive aerodynamics on these cars, whereas GT3s are considered to be a little bit more accessible for perhaps the gentleman racer, whereby of course you do have grids full of professionals, albeit they've all come from different backgrounds. Some professionals, of course, buying their way into motorsport, and they've got money. To be fair, it's because they buy the way into motorsport that actually helps drivers who come through the ranks, coming through whereas their very Norris days in karting, let's say, all the way up to these ranks as well. And GT3s are seen as a bit more of a middle ground for all skill levels, whereas GTEs at the time really seen as cars which were for the very best of the best, and that's why they got an absolute cult following. That's not to say we did not see superstars in these cars. If anybody remembers the 2023 24 Hours of Le Mans, some of you may remember that in the Porsche 911 RSR, we did see none other than Michael Fassbender taking one of those cars out there, albeit it ended up in the barriers for him right towards the end of the race in the closing 6 hours in an absolutely huge incident, which I was on the banking of at the time when it did happen. If you would want a little historical footnote, ladies and gentlemen, I could say I was there, albeit it was definitely a shock to the system. We did see his 911 RSR all in pieces coming out of what was the Porsche curves into the Corvette curves. But meanwhile, we don't have our own Michael Fassbender here. We have someone even more popular. That's Michael Senegal, as he makes his way towards the end of the backstretch. But we've been talking all about these cars, have we not? Let's talk a little bit then about the circuit. And, well, what better way to do so than jump aboard with Mark Senegal for a flying lap. To make his way out of the final corner and on towards the timeline, and well, building up speed to 152 miles an hour as he makes way into opening bend. Trail breaking in, down to 5th, then down to 4th gear, now up the hill, but immediately backs off there and decides he doesn't want to go for it. So Senegal decides he's had enough. He's going to tow to the pit lane. So that's going to be forestalled. Well, he won't be stalled for too long, surely, if we're going to try and go for what is an onboard lap. But can we get one with one of our other drivers instead? I think we might be able to. It might be with Billman DaCosta here in his Ferrari 488 GTE Evo as he heads on around. To make his way towards the timeline then, and as he does so, coming across that line and then up into 6th gear. Now bringing himself into turn 1, coming all the way down from 155 miles an hour, dropping to 4th gear, and up the rise he goes. Completely blind up the hill as he gets ready to brake for turn 3. That was turn number 2 on the left there, but he's got to get it right for turn number 3, bouncing over the curb. Now down the hill he comes through turn number 4. Into the S's, there's no corner numbers here as he makes his way from right, left, right, albeit understeers a little bit, but does get the car back together. Now coming in towards turn number 5, onto the brakes there, down to 4th gear. Let's go run out onto the exit curb and drops to 3rd gear, in fact, on corner exit to give himself a little bit more power, and now make his way up towards turn number 6. In towards the right-hander, the 90 right, albeit there's a lot of camber on this corner, so you can really abuse it, and now in towards turn number 7. Here you've got no camber, you've got to brake early. Braking at 100 metres, and now coming out the corner in 2nd gear. It's going to be flat out all the way now down the back straight, albeit of course he does have the kinks of turns 8 and 9, the left into right, but as he makes his way down the hill in towards the S's, or the chicane, well, we should refer to it as the chicane, not to confuse you with the S's earlier on in the lap. Well, DaCosta comes and down right now, and as he does so, brings the car to the right-hand side, hitting 160 miles an hour as he goes onto the brakes there, coming all the way down to 2nd gear, left into right here, clip those apex curves, and now full throttle blast over the hill, down through turn number 11 and in towards turn number 12, and that is a lap of Road Atlanta, brought to you by Billman DaCosta for Team Bear Pope, and what a lap it is, and thank you to Billman for giving us that lovely on board there as he heads on to what will be his penultimate lap. Meanwhile, the current fastest driver out there in Pro is none other than Jason Landry. Overall and Pro, he goes even faster in his BMW M8, a 1 minute 15.996. A very impressive lap there, 3.5 cents faster than James Logsdon. Albeit these two, of course, do have a seasonal rivalry that they've had for the best part of 3 years. I always remember the first time we saw the two of them together, it was in our GT3 Championship in 2023, whereby James Logsdon, very fresh face, versus Jason Landry, was very established, and in the end, it came down to minor margins between the two for the Pro Overall Drivers' Championship. And well, as they do make the way onwards, do we have any reigning champions here? We do. From our Fall Into Porsche Cup Series from 2025, we have Matt Best, albeit he's not on the grid today, but he was your Pro champion, finally taking a crown over Jason Landry, and he was absolutely ecstatic about it when he did hear that he got the crown over Jason Landry, saying he'd been chasing for the best part of 2.5 years at that point. And in the AM class last season, we did see Shahi Zahair take the glory in the Porsche Cup car, but of course he's back here today in the Pro class, so he's earned his right to move all the way up, and we're very happy to do the Sri Lankan driver there. And a very beautiful livery car, it must be said, making his way on around in the 209. And as he does come on through, in terms of our Winter GR86 champions, all the way back at the start of 2025, well, James Logsdon was your Pro champion there in the little Toyota Cup car machine. And meanwhile, in the AM class, it was Nick Bader, not on the grid today. I do believe not signed up for this series, but I wonder if we'll see him later on in the season. But less than minutes to go here, and well, a quick update with regards to if you need to know which cars are the ones to watch out for and which ones perhaps are not going to be as strong. A quick summary of the 5 cars that we have here. The Ferrari 488, an absolute princess. Goes very well over a single lap, but it needs its tyres managed. If they can stay within the operating window of the tyres, the Ferrari can be one of the quickest cars at any circuit. Outside that window, however, it will absolutely bite its driver back. Meanwhile, in the BMW, well, the BMW M8 is known for one thing, straight line speed. An absolute monster in the straights, but very heavy on the brakes. Has the weakest braking performance, but is okay in the corners. The Corvette, it is the strategy car. As Chad Henson shows his strategy is making its way down the backstretch, and it does have very good fuel saving ability and tyre management, and it is right up towards the front in terms of overall lap pace. The Ford GTE parts there, well, it's not camouflage, but that is the Paul Walker machine and the Fast and Furious car of Julian Jones. Well, it's not going Fast and Furious at the moment, very fast through direction changes. And meanwhile, we do have the Porsche 911 RSR of Eric Legaye, very strong under brake and a very sensible car, very stable car. But as all the drivers cool on down now, qualifying is complete. We are into overtime. We're waiting to see if anyone can find a final lap or two out there, and those who are on laps, they've got to get them done now. As Legaye makes his way on through, well, is he going to be able to find some time here through the final quarter? And the answer is going to be he's 9th overall at the moment, always 8th fastest in Pro, and that's where he's going to stay. And in the Prime class, as we do see the Cisco sponsor machine or Glenn Bratton making its way down the backstretch. Right now, the 289 driver there heading all the way on. But it's looking as though right now nobody is going to be able to dethrone Donald Cepek, who is going to be taking what may be his maiden pole position in the Prime class on his debut in the middle of the Pack Racing League Series. And if so, congratulations to him. Although we'll see Glenn Bratton head towards the line. Can he find a bit more time out there as he roars his way past our curb camera? That lovely perspective, the speed he carries through. And Bratton does not. So he stays in 14th place. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, Blake Phillips makes his way on past our camera now in his own BMW M8. And does he find a bit more time at the line? He does not. And that is qualifying complete. And where it's going to be Jason Landry, who takes pole position overall and in Pro. And in the Prime, 7th overall, it is going to be Donald Cepek, ladies and gentlemen. What a qualifying session we've had. And that sets us up very nicely, of course, for going into our race, which is not too far away. But as we do wait for the transition from what is qualifying to go into race, I do believe we're just waiting for Julian Jones's car to be brought back from the grass at what is turn number 4. Well, as we do wait, of course, with the mixture of cars here, well, we can expect the Ford GTs to be quite quick, but the BMWs have looked very strong as well. Without further ado, however, we are now making our way to the grid for our one and only race today. And as all our drivers make the ones to the grid, this hold on line up for round number 1 of the Middle of the Pack Racing League GTE League for 2026. Brought to you on iRacing here today from the Michelin Raceway of Road Atlanta. And as we can see, it is Jason Landry has taken pole position. An incredible pole lap there by 3.5 tenths over James Logston. But still, the Team Bear Poke driver knows that he's got some work to do if he wants to try and get the job done. And he'll give it everything he can in order to try and make some magic happen. Behind them on row number 2, it's going to be Shahi Zaher, the Sri Lankan driver just ahead of Chad Henson. The gap between the two of them only a grand total of 6 thousandths at the line. And well, from them on row number 3, it's going to be Blake Phillips of the Pit Club Sim Racing, head of Julian Jones there, the privateer from the Falkland Islands, starting 6th, and we look forward to seeing what he can do in his Ford GTE. We then do have your pole sitter for the Prime class, starting at 7th there, Donald Cepek for Team Bear Pope on his debut. Well done to him, he takes the Prime pole, he'll be very pleased with that, and he'll have alongside him there his teammate, none other than Taylor Bookout. Behind the American driver, it's then going to be the Kyrgyzstan driver of none other than what will be Eric Legaye, and then we'll see from him to Mark Senegal for Sunday GT Turtles. It was only a 10th, but it was enough there, and Mark Senegal has to start in none other than 10th place, but for him, it is going to be 2nd place in the Prime class. Behind them on row number 6, it's going to be in 11th, Gabriel Ferrero ahead of Roger Ganesh, and then we will see behind the Sunday GT Turtles driver, MOP Racing's Jermaine Warren. We're waiting for him to get into his spot on the grid. He's the last driver to take his slot, and he'll be joined on the 7th row of the grid by Glenn Bratton, an old rival, no doubt about it. Then we'll see Tom Bryce starting in 15th place ahead of Billman DaCosta for Team Bear Pope, who provide us with that onboard lap, and then it will be Carl Peterson for Sunday GT Turtles in the default Ford livery. But to be fair, can you blame him? Sometimes the defaults are the very best liveries that the cars took in real life. Well, he's bringing that Ford GTE at the back of the field, and that's how they'll all line up, ladies and gents, for our one and only race today. As all of our drivers get in their cars, well, they're waiting now for the formation lap to get underway behind the safety car. And for this season, our sprint races have been extended to 45 minutes. Meanwhile, our endurance races will be an hour. And that does align, of course, with the race formats that you do see in the iRacing official GT Sprint series, where recently we have seen the introduction of hour-long races to go alongside the 45-minute races every so often to add a bit more variety and a bit more strategy. And it does mean the 50% fuel tanks that our drivers will be taking to each and every round of racing. Those fuel tanks will be bound to the fact that our drivers will need to take a pit stop at some point, even in the sprint, if they want to get to the end unscathed on fuel capacity, unless they think they can do it all by fuel saving on the starting tank. It's not impossible necessarily at certain circuits, although it's going to be very hard to do so, and it will be a big strategic gamble. Now, interestingly, with these cars, unlike GT3s, when we come into the pit lane, what do you expect? Do drivers change fuel and also change tyres? No, they will only be refueling at most circuits, and the reason for that is we are running the old World Endurance Championship regulations. I'm not going to lie, a bit of a nerd that I am, I spent the best part until 2 o'clock in the morning last night reading about the regulations as to whether they're actually based in reality on iRacing and whether it was a thing back when the GTs were run as to whether fuel could only be put in first and then the tyres had to be changed, because of course in the modern era GT racing they can be done at the same time. And the answer is yes, there is a small line in the World Endurance Championship regulations on which the rules and regulations on iRacing are based on for these cars, which states that when refueling the car, all 4 tyres must stay on the ground. So that means tyres cannot be changed whilst the car is being refueled. And what that means, therefore, is that after refueling, with 7 seconds of tyre change on average, you are looking at refueling plus 28 seconds if you want to change all 4 tyres. Changing tyres is not the way to do strategy in these races unless you're going to 2, 3 or 4 hour races, and therefore you expect in every race our drivers will be finishing the race on the tyres they started it on. But as the field makes one through that lovely array of liveries there right now, they're all absolutely itching to go, ladies and gentlemen. We're itching to see how they all go today, and well, settle in for the ride, because I can tell you one thing, this is going to be an absolute thriller. And right at the front, as he makes his way down towards what will be the chicane there, Jason Landry right now 9. He's got some work to do with James Logston right with him there. But those two drivers will be absolutely going for it, no doubt about it. And they're almost all set and ready for their destination. But as the 45-minute counter comes up at the top centre of your screen, so we can keep up to speed with the time, well, as all these drivers make the way around, the safety car will pull away, and it will be to Jason Landry to take us to 45 minutes of racing action. And it's lights out and away we go here for one and only race today. It's 45 minutes counted down. The field charges its way in towards turn number 1. And as they do, Jason Landry coming off Logston there as they come in towards that opening braking zone. Chad Henson looking up the inside, can't quite find it. Meanwhile, Bookout falling backwards there as he goes a little bit deep and now brings himself back together. Looking around the outside to the inside with Shahi's Zahair. Zahair trying to get all the way up into 6th place there as they come all down and through. But meanwhile, all the drivers scattering in towards the S's sequence quite quickly, and everyone's safely up through right now. But still too wide here as Bookout trying to hold off Zahair. He will do so into the S's. You can't go too wide for them all the way unless you're both willing to back out, but neither driver there willing to back off, and in the end it was Zahair who had to fall away. But he pounds his way along, a little bit of a poor run there. Hold up, there's a car into the barrier. That's Bookout getting it roll code out of 5. He's grazed the wall, but hopefully he'll get away with it, and he won't need to come into the pits that fast repair, because it will cost him time, even if he has to do the quick way. But as he makes his way back at the speed right now, the pro driver drops down to 14th, and therefore he's got to try and find his way through. We'll try and get a replay of what exactly happened there early on, as meanwhile your leaders roar their way and down towards turn number 11, albeit right now all of them absolutely pushing on as much as they possibly can. But I think this is going to be the start of plenty to come, as we do see there Logston trying to look for a move, but he can't quite find it at the moment. Zahair, meanwhile, looking up the inside here at Donald Cepek, trying to get a place back first to the prime driver. That's going to be straightforward. He makes his way on path, but this calls the queue now. I think see Eric the Guy, Mark Senegal and Roger Ganesh all queuing up together. Ganesh a little bit further back by comparison there in the Sunday GT Turtles machine. And well, that's the Corvette chasing after the Porsche, the 2 teammates. But after one lap, it is Jason Landry who leads, but being pushed hard there by James Logston. Chad Henson getting very close there. Logston getting way too close to the back of Landry coming up the hill. And as they come down in towards turn number 3 right now, well, Henson is going to be looking for a move, but it's not going to come quite through for him. Instead, he's going to have to wait and hold on a little bit longer. But we're on the way down for the S's right now. Your top 4 all together. So it's Landry, Logston, Henson, Phillips. Then Julian Jones. He's sat in 5th right now, falling away a little bit from the leaders, but hoping that he can catch up. Meanwhile, Shahi's Zahair is on a recovery drive back up to 6th now, ahead of Donald Cepek, your pro and leader. Then we have Eric the Sky, the Kyrgyzstan driver, ahead of Mark Senegal, second of your Pro-Ams. And it's Roger Ganesh who rounds off the top 10, third of the Pro-Ams. Gabriel Ferrero, he's had a bit of a slow start. He hasn't really gained or lost any places right now, apart from one pro place off a Taylor Bookout. But otherwise, he's in 11th, ahead of Jermaine Warren and Glenn Bratton. And it's Taylor Bookout there in 14th place on his recovery now. Tom Bryce, Carl Peterson, and Bill DaCosta completing the running order after lap number 1. There's plenty more laps to be done before this race is said and done. And as Mark Senegal makes his way on down the back stretch, we can see there Roger Ganesh getting closer and closer. But does he look for the move? The answer is no. He decides to stay behind instead. Now, if you're sat there right now thinking to yourself, well, what's the most important thing to do in the race? Do you just want to win in class, or do you want to try and get the highest possible overall place? It's both. For our pro drivers, they only score points for where they finish overall. So therefore, if you are a pro such as Jason Landry, your goal is you need to win the race. You cannot afford to just be the best pro. You cannot let a Pro-Am driver beat you. Meanwhile, in the Pro-Am class, the aim of the game is the higher you finish overall, the more points you take into your championship, because you score from an overall points table, of which the maximum points for the win is 50, and we work it down by divisions of 2. So it's 50, 48, 46, etc. And then it gradually goes down to divisions of 1 later on down the point scoring chart. But the most important thing is the fact that on top of that, the Pro-Ams also earn bonus points for podium positions, whereby we'll hold the phone on that because we've got a bit of action here. Let's go swapping the places here. Roger Ganesh trying to go around the outside of Mark Senegal. Senegal having a poor run, coming out to turn number 5, and the release of the place there to his teammate, Gabriel Ferrero, right behind. And Ferrero in the number 7 right now, trying to come through, but the M&M's machine right now not feeling sweet at all. In fact, feeling quite nutty, it would seem. Indeed, he'd be nuts for going for a move there at turn number 7, where he's got a long straight, and he won't want to disrupt the flow of these cars as they come down towards the chicane. But the point we're going to make was the fact in the podium finish positions for the Pro-Ams, a win is worth 3 points, a second place is worth 2, and third is worth 1. So it's a small number of bonus points, but if you pick up extra bonus points, it's always worth it, because you never know, the championship may come down to those bonus points at the very end of the season. And we've seen that plenty of times at the middle of the pack racing league in our AM and Pro-Am classes over the years, where bonus points have really decided the narrative. But meanwhile, as Senegal looks to give chase again, Roger Ganesh, meanwhile, we have lost him for a brief moment, and then he comes on back. So Ganesh finds himself back out there, which is good to see. I was going to say, hopefully we don't see a technical retirement for any drivers. That'd be the equivalent of the engine going up in the car, of which these GT machines, well, as their name would suggest, GT endurance cars, they definitely do not have too many technical retirements over the years. And well, as we do see Ganesh making his way onwards, further back, Taylor Bookout here, right on the back of this long group. Now riding on board here with the Team Depot drivers. That's a mistake for Glenn Bratton. That's going to give Bookout an opportunity here. As you can see right now, Bratton having to go to the inside to try and cover him off. But looking around the outside here, Bookout trying to go for the move. He's going to have to use the confidence of the Porsche, using that rear end to his advantage. And we're coming in towards turn number 7. That's not going to be easy around the outside still. It's going to cost him a lot of time. He runs a bit wide there. But now it's going to be a drag race in. That BMW, once it gets up to speed, once that turbo starts to spool, it's going to be a monster. The twin-turbo V8 4-litre machine as they roar the way onwards. And right now you can see the Porsche there for all its natural aspiration. Well, the problem is right now here comes the BMW back at him just a small stiff of the so, and like that, he's going to be on the inside. Is Bratton down to the braking zone. And then he decides to back off there, lifts off the throttle, and recognises the fact he's never beaten a Porsche on the brakes, not if it's being handled by Taylor Bookout. But in the end, as they make their way over the rise right now, well, that's going to come to the end of lap number 4 for them. And meanwhile, Jason Landry is now starting to pull away at the front of the field. As you can see, Logston, Henson and Phillips, they're all staying with an arm's reach of each other, but this field is starting to just gradually gap on itself, and that will be where tyre life now is starting to come into a bit of a premium, and they have to start managing the tyres a little bit and also consider some fuel saving potentially for later on in the race. Now, the tyres of these GT cars, they can be pushed. They do have one of the most comfortable tyre models in iRacing currently, whereby you can take a set of tyres the best part of 90 to 120 minutes before you'll need to consider changing them. However, it does require you as the driver not to push the compound excessively, whereby essentially you can have one fast lap and then you might need 2 cooler laps before you attack again. But the very best drivers out there, of course, will find a way of essentially driving the compound at about 90% of its potential lap after lap. That's where the very best are able to achieve the lap times versus those who are learning the cars who normally do, and I'll put my hand up and say that I've done it plenty of times, but they'll normally push the tyres way too hard for the first 5 laps of the race, and then suddenly they're fighting against tyre temperatures for the next 6 to 7 laps to cool the tyres back down. But as Roger Ganesh and Mark Senegal look to a swap here, well, right now it's Porsche versus Corvette. You can see that Porsche there matching the Corvette on speed with the slipstream aid in it. And Senegal takes the place back there as Ganesh falls back into 3rd or 10th in the overall category. The 3rd in Pro-Am class will be what is directive at the moment as they make the way on to the next lap. Back up front, Chad Henson's got the pressure of Blake Phillips. He has lost James Logston. Logston has got away to a degree, and we've let ourselves get away from taking a look back at some big moments from the start of the race. We will get some replays of those in due course. But as he tries to weave and wind them on Frey, well, right now, Henson will be grateful for the fact he's coming into the S's. He doesn't have to worry about Phillips looking for that potential move, at least for now. But as Henson makes his way out to turn number 5, where you can see Blake Phillips there, a little bit more aggressive on corner exit. Henson then gets it together, and that's the thing, of course, the exit at turn number 5. You can use all the road if you so desire, but of course going up onto that exit curve, it's a very high curve and it can unsettle a car just as much as it can be comfortable for you as the driver to carry a bit more speed. So it's a bit of a gambling act there. Meanwhile, as we do see Julian Jones behind in the Ford GTE, because this car, a bit of a controversial one in the real-world GTE, in the fact that whilst it's quote-unquote based on a road car, the reality is, as I come to understand from speaking to a few people, that actually this was a specific designed race car, and there were some exceptions to the rules in the GTE era. If anybody does remember some of the more notable GTE machines, or GT cars they're also known, such as the absolutely whopping V12 Dodge Viper, for example, indeed those teams and indeed the manufacturers had to get waivers off of the FIA World Endurance Council, or the equivalent to that time, to be able to run those cars. But right now, Chad Henson here won't want to waver with regards to trying to back off versus Blake Phillips. Phillips up the inside of it towards turn number 1, and Phillips takes the place right now, but I suspect this will be building up to a battle that's going to brew later. Remember, whatever Henson has in that Corvette, if he doesn't have it in terms of pace, he can have it in regards to strategy, and the Corvette will be kinder to its tyres and its fuel as the race goes on. Blake Phillips, meanwhile, in that BMW, will very quick over a singular lap, but it does have a bigger degradation pool with regards to its tyre life and particularly its brakes. The brakes on the BMW, one of its main weaknesses, and therefore Phillips now really has to be careful. Of course, it's a bit of a contrary weakness. It's one of the quickest of the straights, but of course it's the weakest in the braking zones. But what happens at the end of a long straight? You have got a heavy braking zone, so it does reel the BMW back in. Meanwhile, we do see change of foot here as Roger Ganesh under pressure on Gabriel Ferrero, still trying to poke his way through in the number 7. And well, as he tries to make his progress, right now Jermaine Bonnet and Taylor Bookout are right behind here. So it is the pros surrounded by primes, but remember, the way the middle of the pack racing league series is set up, all of our drivers are encouraged to battle each other regardless of class. Because at the end of the day, if you are a prime and you beat a pro, you get more points by default and would the pro if they beat you. So therefore, these drivers right now will be staying together and nobody wanting to give up too much time position. But here comes Henson back at Blake Phillips. Phillips went for the move on the previous lap and got it done to turn 1. Henson thinks about it. That's not coming forward. Meanwhile, 2 wide hit almost in the Battle of the Beavers. That's Shahid Zaher under pressure from Donald Seepet, the prime leader, who right now I think is trying to say to him, can you politely get a move on? Otherwise, I'm going to have to get a move on you. So that's going to be on his mind there as both drivers come charging on down the hill. But of course, no change at the moment as we take a look back in time, ladies and gentlemen, at some of the big moments from earlier on in the race, including what happened to Bill and DaCosta on the opening lap. So this was as the drivers made their way around, and in fact this was, I believe, on the formation lap that Bill DaCosta had a bit of a moment coming down the hill, and in the end, well, just not quite get it right coming down through turn number 3, but in the end bringing himself back onto the circuit with certainty. So that happened right at the start, and then we had this big moment for Taylor Bookout at the exit of turn number 5, and this was your pro driver here under pressure from Zaher, carried a lot of speed into the corner, hit the exit curve hard, and in the end the car snapped on him, and did he graze the wall? He did! Oh, goodness me, that might not be the biggest of impacts, but it will have knocked the front suspension slightly askew. I imagine the front suspension has been misaligned as a result of that, but it's not enough to break the car, but it definitely will make some of the corners harder, particularly left-hand turns. Meanwhile, on lap number 3, we had this for Bill and DaCosta, and this was coming down in towards the SS sequence, and well, he did understeer wide in the qualifying lap we rode on board with, but he hit the apex curve there, and in the end, well, thankfully he was able to take to the club layout of the circuit to avoid going too wide, and unfortunately carried too much speed. He was trying to loop it, but then discovered the turning circle of the car at low speed. It's not something you want to try and push. We then had this for Tom Bryce only moments later. This was Bryce making his way out to the S's, and I suspect he's going to have a similar moment to Bookout as he hit the curb, rear of the car completely let go there and bounced around, and in the end being censored by the motor barrier, but we promise you he's there, albeit slightly in the wall. And then we had this for Carl Peterson on lap number 5, as we did see the plague machine getting it back together. Well, meanwhile, Carl Peterson making his way over the crest, and in the end just going a bit too deep there at turn number 3. Easy mistake to make, but quickly getting himself back on the road. Well, with that, let's get back on the road to your live racing. And as we do, there's still plenty of time left in this race, no doubt about it. We're not even a quarter of the way there yet. In fact, let me do my mathematics. We're not even a third of the way there yet, indeed, right now, as our drivers carry on. But as they do, the fastest driver out there at the moment, humping in the laps, Jason Landry absolutely trying to pull away as much as he possibly can, as that's going to be a 16.821 to Logsdon's 17.740. So therefore, at the moment, Landry definitely has all the cards in his hand, and Logsdon doing the same in second. And then Blake Phillips and Chad Henson, they're still close together here and both push each other on. But that's really going to be your top four at the moment in pro and overall, as behind there is Julian Jones, falling away a little bit. In fact, the last couple laps of Jones have been worrying, perhaps, if he's concerned about Shahi Zahair closing up, because Zahair is gaining on him. Last lap, Zahair did gain half a tenth on him. So Zahair is the quicker driver at the moment, albeit by marginal margins. But understandably, every tenth and a hundredth is invaluable, let alone every thousandth. Coming up towards turn number 6 right now. No change to these drivers, but the BMW Army chasing on the Ford GTE. And well, whilst we did hop and skip over the strengths of the Ford GTE, just to be clear about them, this circuit is quite a good one, Road Atlanta Ford GTE. It loves fast direction change in medium and high speed corners. It does struggle a little bit on low downforce circuits, so at Road America, expect that Julian Jones and the Ford GTE drivers are going to find themselves up against a bit of a pace wall, that being in round number 3, because the nature of the Ford GTE is you have to use the strength of the fact that this car loves downforce. And of course, Road Atlanta is a circuit where you normally run medium to high downforce, so that's where the Ford will go very well. Take the rear wing off, however, and you have to take a lot of it off to get the straight line speed. The difficulty is the car actually starts to become quite unsettled in the corners. Really is one of those, the more downforce you run the Ford GT, the quicker it gets. When you go to a circuit with a lot of straight, and actually the more rear wing you run, the less speed you carry down the straight. So it really comes to bite back. But beyond that, it can be good on fuel, and it also can be decent on its tyres. The other thing, of course, is the fact that it's not the best in terms of forward visibility. This is what it looks like from our roll bar camera inside Julian Jones's number 33. Now, keep in mind, we have a camera with a much wider field of view compared to where the driver is sat in the car. They're further forward than this camera, and well, it is really looking out of a post box, this car, essentially. And I don't know how they managed to do it, the drivers. I've given it a go, and I promise you I can't work it out. I normally race the BMW M8 when I race the officials, but definitely if you can get used to the limited vision of the Ford GTE, it's meant to be one of the most rewarding cars out there to learn to drive. And indeed, there are plenty of Ford GTE enthusiasts out there in the GTE community, including Julian Jones. But meanwhile, as we see a change of place to Tom Bryce, making his way on past Carl Peterson there and taking that place after both of them, of course, had woe in the opening 5 laps, albeit for Bryce it was a moment with the wall coming out of turn 5. For Peterson it was just braking a bit too late in towards turn number 3. Well, that's what their place is on around right now. But from them, Roger Ganesh here, well, he has lost Mark Senegal. He has been passed whilst we're in the replays by none other than Gabriel Ferrero, and now here comes Taylor Bookout trying to take the place as well. So the Sunday GT Turtles drivers here being split by pros, and Bookout up the inside there, classic move, and now Ganesh will try to come back at him as he makes his way up the hill, over the rise and down into the next corner. But riding on board here, the Sunday GT Turtles driver, can he find a way in? And the answer at this time is no. But instead he's just got to run in the toe here and try to roll with it. That's the best thing you can do. Don't fight too hard if you can't keep up the driver in front. But goes a bit too deep there. Dirty washes both cars out there as Bookout goes very wide. He brings it back together gradually. But that's going to be a rallycross approach there for Taylor Bookout. And well, he brings himself back on. But it's also a mistake there for Ganesh. They're all making errors. And Jermaine Warren, well, there the MOP racing driver just simply picks up the places where others are dropping the ball. And well, can you blame him? Not at all. He does in the end manage to find his way on safely through there when everything does go a bit awry for everyone else. But meanwhile, well, still holding together, there's Mark Senegal in 9th place. However, pressure is building on him for that position from none other than Gabriel Ferrero, as in fact we've had another bit of difficulty at turn number 5 for Taylor Bookout. He's just lost places there to both Ganesh and Bratton. So he's lost out after gaining. Bill DaCosta, by the way, is in the pit lane due to an incident. We will get a replay of that in due course. But it's all chop and change towards the rear of the field. Meanwhile, back towards the front of the field, we were saying about Julian Jones being caught up to. And Shahi Zahair has definitely caught back up to him now. And when we look back from the rear of your Ford GTE driver, and the gap, 3 attempts they come across that time. In fact, 4 attempts now into turn 1. But the point being that Zahair has brought that gap down. Last lap, Zahair was a tenth slower, but I suspect that is the dirty air there just upsetting the aero balance of the car, and therefore coming into what is a bit of a play zone whereby not feeling as comfortable. But soon he is going to be in a position to be able to go on the attack, and that is going to give him plenty of opportunity to make amends for the difficulties from earlier on, albeit as they come on through the S sequence there and up through turn number 5. You can see Zahair gets so close initially, and then suddenly he does have to fall back. but still there's time in the works here. They're not halfway yet, and we're not towards the pit stops as yet, and that will be food for thought there with these drivers. And does Zaher potentially look at making a pit stop in order to undercut his rival? Where if he was to go for it, given the fact the field is now starting to spread out, we're expecting only fuel pit stops, it would be probably in the region around 15 to 18 seconds the stationary time, if I had to guess. And then end to end the pit lane. Road Atlanta does have a moderate pit lane length, but it does have a lot of time on the pit limiter, so you would expect, in fact, you are going to be spending the best part of 35 seconds in the pit lane end to end. So that could end up being to the detriment if you end up coming out in traffic, but in the field right now, well, 35 seconds is a hair's point, we're putting near book out, so it would not be ideal. But here they come, on to another lap. As they roar the way onto the next one, we can see behind, that is Donald Cepek trying to close up. So right now, your prime leader here for Bear Pope, he's just staying out of trouble, but he might be looking to pick some trouble with the guys in front very soon if he can. We'll see what he's going to be able to do about that one. Over the hill he comes, and as he does, well, what exactly is happening elsewhere? Gabriel Ferrero here, chasing after Mark Senegal, still trying to find a way in the M&M machine. And, well, it's definitely making me hungry to see that livery every single time. And, well, absolute peanuts there as he comes up towards turn number 4. But from him, back to James Logsdon. He was breaking away from Blake Phillips. Phillips has caught back up to him. And I think Logsdon might be starting to feel a little bit of a pinch here with regards to the Ferrari's tyres. Remember, as we said earlier, this Ferrari, a very capable car. We'll hold the fort on that. As where is Mark Senegal? Senegal's gone wide there, coming out of turn number 5. And, well, big mistake from him. And that mistake's giving Gabriel Ferrero the place. And now he's under pressure with Jermaine Warren, who's catching up to him. We're going to have a battle of the two 911 RSRs on the 991 RSR. Same car, different naming culture. We're coming out of that turn number 7 right now. Well, Jermaine Warren here in the draft as he roars his way onwards. And we ride aboard the dashboard here of the 213. And we're at this distance, 3 tenths gap. Warren is not closing as much anymore, even though they're running what is a medium downforce setup on these cars in terms of the fixed setup. Well, as they come down towards turn number 11, Warren looks one way then the other, but on the brakes they go into the chicane, and in the end he's not going to find a way through this time, but he's definitely poking and probing. He's trying to see what exactly he can potentially do here to make the magic happen, coming over the crest of 11 now and in towards turn number 12. Well, again, trying to put that mental pressure on, but right now both drivers knowing there's still prizes further up the road that they want to take on, particularly the two pros of Ferrero and Lagai, and then after that there might even be more places to take, albeit they're going to have to wait and see what's going to be possible before all is said and done. Towards turns at 3 and 4 they come, and right now with the MOP Racing drive close here in that dirty A, doesn't seem uncomfortable running in it compared to some of his rivals. That's a good thing, because if you're able to get used to running that dirty and running this close, you can now start to maximise it. And one of the things about these GTEs as well, compared to GT3s, as Jermaine Warren there completely loses the rear coming out of 5, and well, I think he clipped the apex curve slightly, and with the lack of front end downforce in the end, that unsettled the car further, so he's going to correct that mistake. There was about to say is that these cars gain a huge draft on each other down the straight, and well, Julian Jones here, 9 that now because Shahid Zaher goes up the inside of it. Jones backs off there under braking, lets it go, and I think the idea is that he's able to save some fuel. But into the pits comes James Logsdon, and that was Blake Phillips running on through. So Logsdon is the first driver here today to come in for what will be his mandatory pit stop by the looks of things, although Taylor Bookout has been in as well, and I suspect that might also be an early pit stop, so he might be driver number 2 instead. Shahid Zaher still has Jones behind him now, fighting over 4th on the road at least, but we suspect this is for 5th once the strategy comes into play, as we do almost get towards the halfway point of the race. We've only got another 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll be halfway through, and then we'll start to see those pit stops, although the fuel tank will enable drivers to go just over the halfway point, or they will be forced to pit unless they do some extra fuel saving. As Zaher brings Jones and Cepek together, you can see Donald Cepek closing up, and right now it's the 2 BMW sandwich in the 4 GTE, definitely a flavoursome sandwich there. And where's James Logsdon come back out? He has come out in 12th place, just ahead of Roger Ganesh, and about a second behind Glenn Bratton. So is it a good pit stop for Logsdon? Have they picked the right time for Team Bear Pope? The answer is maybe, because the problem he now has is if he catches up to Bratton too soon, remember he has to now recycle the heat cycle of the tyres. He has to get them back up to temperature. Whilst he's only been stationary for 13 seconds in the pit lane, tyres will have lost about 5 to 10 degrees centigrade of surface temperature, and he's got to build them back up. But when he's in the dirty of another car straight away, and he's got to push to find his way past Glenn Bratton as they go onto the straight, well, that's a mistake for Roger Ganesh in the rear of the picture. We can't become distracted, but for good reason, as he does rejoin. Well, for James Logsdon right now, if he can't clear clear Bratton quickly, he may actually be at risk of having to push harder on the compound early on this second stint in order to be able to get the move done, and that may actually start to really bite into the tyre. So Logsdon's got to think about this. How quickly does he get this move done? I think the answer is he needs to do it soon as Jermaine Warren comes into the pits, but he's got to catch Bratton at the right point, or hope that Bratton's perhaps going to fly into the pits shortly as they come over the hill. Bratton sees him coming and immediately pulls aside there. Well, Bratton respects the fact that he's in a different race compared to Logsdon, and there's no point keeping it at bay here, given the fact that one has pitted, one has not. So therefore, that's the change between them. Meanwhile, we've had a total pits for Eric Lagai. Something's got a roll for him as well. Pit stops are underway. Jermaine Warren being serviced at the moment, and whilst he's being serviced, well, let's service you, ladies and gentlemen, with an understanding of some of the big moments that have happened, including firstly what exactly has happened to none other than Eric Lagai. So this was our AO Racing Tribute livery driver making his way down into the S's. Car snapped one way down, now touched the grass a little bit and into the barrier, and that was it for him. As quick as that, it all went wrong. We then had this a bit earlier on for none other than what was, I do believe, Billman Da Costa. It all went a bit wrong for him on lap number 11. In fact, this is Da Costa making his way down the pit lane, so it went wrong on the exit of the pits. What exactly happened? And in the end, the car just rolling. A bit of a technical issue, had to stop the car. Something definitely wrong with the car. Not quite sure what exactly, though. And we also did have this only moments later for Taylor Bookout on lap number 13. And this was your Porsche 911 RSR driver from Team Bearpo. Hits the curb there, coming out the S's. And in the end, that unsettles the car a little bit, and a further impact with the curb at turn number 5. And it all went around for him. Well, mistakes are made, but in the end, a big one there. And Mark Senegal, only months later, a lap after, he was under pressure here from none other than Gabriel Ferrero. And well, he did exactly the same there. Hit both curbs, and in the end, went wide, went to the gravel. But thankfully, was able to toss it into the gravel to get the gravel to settle the car down, and that's why he was then under pressure from Jermaine Warren. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's back to your live race will become, because we've still got more racing to come. As we do come on back, well, time is of the essence for several of these drivers now as we do cross the halfway point. We are into the second half of the race, but for a lot of drivers, they're still yet to get their pit stop out the way. Blake Phillips is leading. Jason Landry has pitted, it should be pointed out, whilst we have been looking back at replay footage. So Phillips and Henson are your on-the-road leaders, but they are fighting for what we believe is third and fourth place. Well, here comes Chad Henson looking up the inside into turn 1. That's not going to work, but he is trying to put that mental pressure on as we do right aboard the dashboard here of the 203 Privateer. And, well, these cameras, of course, really give you an idea of how close they get to each other coming through these corners as the car bounces down for turns 2, 3 and 4. A little bit of oversteer there from Phillips. He's working that BMW hard, and he's trying to make sure he carries all the speed he can. It should be pointed out that BMW is an outlier. It's front engine rear-wheel drive, whereas all the other GT cars are mid-engine rear-wheel drive. Of course, there was a sixth car that raced in the concluding era of GTEs, which was the Aston Martin V8 Vantage GTE. Sadly not available on iRacing. We hope today when it does come, but right now we do have 5 of the big 6, and understandably Blake Phillips right now trying to hold on here in the outlier car. Although the engine is front mid-engine, it is placed behind the front axle as much as possible to distribute the weight towards the centre of the car. It does mean balance performance-wise, that's why the BMW is so strong in the straights, but it does struggle a little bit in the corners, particularly medium to low speed corners, is where its rotation does have a bit of difficulty. But Henson here in the toe, he has no difficulty getting close, but he does have difficulty looking for a move. But I think this right now might be all about some mental pressure he's trying to apply, and that will give him the chance in the end to leap ahead in the pits. Perhaps he can save some fuel, but no more fuel saving off the back of his rival, because into the pits comes Blake Phillips from the lead. Shahi Zahir comes down the hill, and behind him Julian Jones and Donald Sepek. And Sepek right now, the number 15, your lead in prime driver here. Could he be on course potentially for a 6? Could he even take a top 5 here today overall? So if so, he'd be doing very well to do so as he chases after Jones's GTE, the Ford that is, and heading up the hill. Well, right now, no change between them. But meanwhile, we look back to Jason Landry. There's your proof that he has pitted. Where is James Logsdon? He's 5 seconds behind. So as Landry comes down the hill at the moment, we're all looking absolutely right for the number 6 driver, and all coming together as he's going to make his way past Blake Phillips, still being serviced in the pit lane. Phillips halfway through his pit stop at the moment, and he'll soon be done. And in fact, Phillips is now done. And well, here he goes back out. But where does he come out? He'll come out behind James Logsdon. Albeit the gap to Logsdon, has it really changed since we last saw them? The answer, yes, in fact. It's actually come down by the best part of 2 seconds. So a good pit stop there for Blake Phillips, and some fuel saving as well in his open incident has brought him closer. And also I would say that Logsdon had that initial time behind Glenn Bratton, although Bratton didn't do anything to hold him up, but because he had to fall back a little bit coming through the middle portion of the lap in order to protect the tyres, Logsdon did lose some extra time there. So Logsdon has lost about 2.5 seconds by undercutting versus Blake Phillips. So Phillips' overcut has been to his advantage, albeit he is trying to undercut undercut Chad Henson. And here is Henson going on to another lap. So he's going to lead another one. He wants more time at the very front of the field, and we're going to oblige him with some camera time. But not for too long, because there's a battle going on behind. And there's Julian Jones and Shahi Zahair. Jones gets ahead. Here comes Seebeck up the inside. He can't quite find it, but Jones does sneak his way through up in a second at the moment. But understandably, this is on the road. It's not on strategy. All three of these drivers do need to pit soon. So therefore, we can expect them to come in anytime soon, probably within the next 2 to 3 laps, if not at the end of this one. But they're going to push each other every step of the way. And Jones right now, definitely very happy with the way his board's handling, but he's got to try and keep it together, because Shahi Zahair, well, one thing that's definitely noticeable about him is the fact he has been trying that BMW absolutely brilliantly, and I wonder if Zahair's actually holding back about 5% just to make sure he doesn't cook the brakes too hard, and also to save some fuel in that car. Because Jones right now don't have to push very hard to stay ahead here, and you can see that as they make their way out of turn number 7, and now we are onto the back straight, which is where that BMW will really shine. And Jones, meanwhile, will just have to simply now hope that he's able to stay ahead. But does he go defensive here, or does he instead opt potentially just to let the place go and let Zahair do the to me to you oscillation, whereby he can lift off the throttle nice and early and save some fuel coming down in towards the chicane? The answer is going to be no. He's going to stay at the front of the field. Zahair in fact backs off, and CPEC does the exact same behind. So therefore, all three drivers now all locking in together, and we're coming over the rise. None of them decide to come into the pit lane. They all stay out for another lap. Henson does the same. Gabriel Ferreira, meanwhile, coming down towards the chicane now, and as he does so, well, he's 1.5 seconds ahead of Jason Landry. But remember, Jason Landry is the leading driver of those who have pitted, and therefore your top 5, as we understand it, they've all got to come into the pit, and they all will go down the order. So Landry is the effective leader of this race, as Ferreira immediately steps aside there, goes into the pit lane. And what Mark Senegal is doing to do the same. And meanwhile, just a bit further back there, that is Eric the Guy after his big moment, after he goes to the pit. He's back out there right now with a car that's been repaired, and we do get to see Rexy on the attack once again, as the car's aptly named by the AO Racing team. And well, if you want a little bit of curiosity, we do recommend you go to the official Twitter page at AO Racing, because they have informed us that essentially, because the Rexy livery has been on several cars, the way they explain that in the Rexy law, yes, bear with me, ladies and gentlemen, there is law with regards to Rexy, is that each Rexy livery represents a different lifetime, or a different lifespan for Rexy, if you will. It's almost its parallel universe syndrome in a way, and well, it's a brilliant way of explaining it. We won't say any more. Go check it out if you're curious. They really have crafted a little bit of a story, and it's so lovely when they do that. A livery that was all born from, I do believe, one of the mechanics' children, essentially loving dinosaurs, and they thought, why don't we put it on the car? And it makes sense. It attracts viewers, and also, to be fair, AO Racing attract very good drivers to their team. They are one of the best out there. But into the pits comes Chad Henson, so does Zahair, so does Sipek. Jones has stayed out, and Jason Landry was 3 of the top 4 all come in. Landry right now surely rethinks himself. This is his time to be taking the lead back into his hands. Well, 16 minutes still left on the clock here. Plenty more laps to be accrued. We are expecting around 34 to 35 laps today, given the relatively short and fast nature of this circuit. As he comes on down, well, right now Landry definitely very happy the way the race is going. James Logston a bit further back. Well, we wonder where we're going to see what will be the likes of Henson come out in all this, because Chad Henson's now leaving the pit lane. In fact, he has jumped ahead of Zahair and CPEC, and well, in fact, what a wonderful pit stop it has been for Chad Henson. He's had a very quick one, and Zahair has lost out massively in the pit lane by comparison. Meanwhile, Blake Phillips coming back out just behind, and so it's Logston, Henson and Phillips. Gap between the trio is 4 seconds in total. They're pretty much where they started now. Shahi Zahair's a bit further back there, a much longer pit stop. And Donald Sepek, meanwhile, a further 2 seconds behind. So Sepek's had the longest pit stop of the trio, came in of Phillips, Zahair and himself. But the Pram leader right now still leading class comfortably ahead of Jermaine Warren, who is to the tune of around about, we believe, 13 seconds behind. Ooh, careful, Jermaine. That's not the way you want to do turn number 3 into 4. The car sliding around there as if it's on a pendulum. And, well, the 911 RSR, of course, mid-engine variable drive. And, well, another little bit of a historical footnote for you, ladies and gentlemen, if you love these, as he does not love exit 5. Turn number 5 there as he makes an exit stage right, but thankfully he just avoids the barrier. But Mark Senegal does sneak on through, and well, we had to part the historical footnote there because it was almost history for Jermaine Warren's race. Goodness me, as Mark Senegal got it wrong earlier on, now Jermaine Warren almost got it wrong, and well, both drivers in just about keeping it together. As Jason Landry comes on through to retake lead with Julian Jones pitting. Jones there being serviced. James Logston, meanwhile, still makes one past. Here comes Chad Henson, then here comes Blake Phillips. So Jones will come out behind them all. But does he come out ahead of Shahi Zahair? The man he was battling before he came into the pits. And the answer is yes, he does. Julian Jones then did a lot of fuel saving on that stint. He had a 2-second faster stop, and he's been able to buy himself now a very comfortable gap to the tune of what is, I do believe, 5 seconds to Zuhair. Meanwhile, CPEC's fallen back, so change in the pit lane there. I suspect as well, pit entry and pit exit times have been a big factor, because coming downhill into the pit lane at Road Atlanta, you do want to be as aggressive as possible, but of course in these GTEs, you have to be very sensible how you brake to the pit limiter line, because that pit limiter line is literally around the edge of a corner. You cannot see it. You have to brake for an invisible limiter line that you will see only when you turn the apex of the pit entry. And we'll understand, with there being no ABS in these cars, you can't take the GT3 approach, which is just hammer the brakes at the very end and pray for the best. In these, if you do that, you'll lock up the brakes, you'll scorch the front tyres, which you'll need to drive in the second part of the race, and also you run the risk of just drifting into the pit lane at full speed. Not something you want to do. But what we were going to say with regards to historical footnotes to the Porsche 911s, as hold up, was there contact there between Mark Stengel and Jermaine Warren? Well, there's a swap of the places, that's for certain, but the angle there not flattering for both drivers. We're going to need to get a replay of that. The Porsche's definitely struggling here today now, and we'll take a quick look back at exactly what just happened, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go. So this was Mark Stengel making his way through the SS sequence by himself. Now coming out of turn number 5, I think the turn 5 exit curve is going to strike again. It does, and hits the barrier hard. Worse than what happened to Book out right at the start of the race. And in the end, that was Mark Stengel trying to pick the right place to go then. So Jermaine Warren came up behind him. Oh my goodness. And in the end, well, Stengel got the car off the road. I think he wanted to get out of the way, but he was hoping that nobody's coming up as quick. But in the end, to the barrier, and his race all in bits down. I think a bit of frustration as well as he ping-pongs his way back onto the road. And I think right now just trying to survive and get to the pit lane rather than tow. But definitely a scary moment, and this is what it looked like from Jermaine Warren's perspective, ladies and gentlemen. So he made his way along. Now, Mark Stengel at this point in the middle of the road. He knows something's wrong. He thinks going to the right, then going to the left, and then Mark switches, but Warren was able to get the brakes on in time there. It was into the braking zone, to be fair, of turn number 6. So, if anything, Stengel actually did right there to get the car into the braking zone before he threw the car off the circuit. So, Warren had to brake anyway to make the corner. So, it did work out a tricky one there. Stengel might get a bit of a warning by the stewards about that one, but I don't think it'll be anything more than that. Both drivers doing the best they could given the circumstances. But back to your live racing we go. And as we do come on back, well, not too much time left in this one. 12 minutes now left on the clock. All the pit stops complete, at least those scheduled for our drivers. But will there be any more pit stops before all is said and done? Well, if there's no more pit stops, there's still fighting to be done, because here's Eric the Guy, the Kyrgyzstan driver, trying to make a move on Tom Bryce. He comes out of turn number 5 right now, keeping it together. We are definitely seeing those Porsche 911 RSRs all struggling here today. Road Atlanta, not the kindest circuit to the Porsche, as we do see our leaders coming on through. Landry and Logston have gotten through, but now the guy is going to have to worry about Chad Henson, who's got close here, and Henson has been closing down that gap to James Logston. He's done a very good job of closing down. He's got it down to a second, and will the slipstream zone off the back of these cars is as far as about 1.8 seconds. When you get within a second of the car in front, you pick up a really big tow, and within half a second, it is absolutely gargantuan. But at 1.8, you will start to feel it a little bit, and it does mean if the driver in front of you doesn't have a slipstream, you will start to gain a tenth or two on the straight, and you start to really build up what is that exponential effect of the domino effect. The closer you start to get, the more powerful the tow does become. And that's what Henson's going for right now. He's going to push as much as he can and to get an attacking distance with only the best part of around about 7 to 8 laps remaining, including the one they've gone on to. But they are having to pick their way through lap down cars now, and that makes things just that little bit harder. As next on the list there for Henson is Tom Bryce in his lovely, what is plaid machine. And we'll come roaring on down here right now. I wonder if there's a bit of Scottish inspiration or Irish inspiration with regards to that one. I'll have to ask him at some point once he gets out the car after today. There's definitely one of the lovely liveries out there. And well, coming through turn number 5, well, Henson gets a good face for the plaid machine, but in the end right now he's going to move to the side, and well, Bryce there steps away as the guy makes one pass as well. So Eric the Guy being a bit adventurous, as meanwhile Bryce says, hold up a second, that wasn't part of the script. He dives back at the inside of the iRacing Rexy machine. So Bryce there knowing who he's fighting and knowing who he's not meant to be fighting, but right now with these two fighting, they do have Blake Phillips closing up behind, and well, for none other than Blake Phillips at this point. This is going to prove a little bit frustrated here, because he's got 2 fighters a lap down in front of him, and this is always the worst one because both drivers ahead. Blue flags are being waved to them. Remember, the blue flags in GTE racing, which we do follow here in the middle of the pack racing league, means that there is a lead lap car coming up behind you, or a car that's a lap ahead of you coming up behind. Make it predictable how they overtake you, not get out the way and let them overtake you. Instead, it's you just drive your normal lines, and it's the lead lap car's responsibility to make the move. But of course, Eric Laguy right now does not want to have to be predictable for what would be Blake Phillips. He needs to be unpredictable to attack Tom Bryce. But now that Phillips is right there behind, well, this is the moment where you have to be the bigger man in that number 5, and you've either got to make a quick decision to go for a move, or you have to start to think to yourself, you know what, if I let the guy behind me go, I might actually be able to gain on Bryce by simply having Bryce then get impeded by Blake Phillips. As we look back from Tom Bryce's car, but in the heat of the moment, nobody wants to give way. When it's close, a little bit of oversteer there, and in the end, Laguy pulls over. He lifts off the throttle slightly. That oversteer really cementing the deal. Bryce does the same here. Very tactical move from Tom Bryce. This is smart. What he's doing is essentially he just simply goes, well, if Laguy's going to back off, I'll back off as well, and I'll just make it so the next car now causes a problem. And Eric Laguy right now, all the traffic is coming at the worst time from his Julian Jones now gets onto the back of this, and Laguy immediately responds by pulling aside. He says to himself, right, if it's going to keep happening, I'm going to have to do something a bit different here, because otherwise Bryce is going to be laughing all the way to the points bank on this one. And well, right now Julian Jones gets him through. The gap to Blake Phillips has been halved as a result of Phillips being caught up behind the pair, so it has worked out in Jones's favour, and if he can clear Bryce shortly, he is going to gain even more time here. So this might be something he's got to keep in mind as he comes out of turn 10 in towards 11. And well, we do see there Tom Bryce stepping aside. And well, too wide in turn 12 is always risky, but he's backed a little bit too much. Here comes the guy looking for the move around the outside then. They are going to swap the places. And I think there Tom Bryce has been a little bit too considerate of the lead lap car. And well, he's done the right thing, but has he done the right thing for himself? And the problem is maybe not, as meanwhile, Glenn Bratton rejoining the road, and as he does so, well, he has just made his way on past Roger Ganesh, who's had a bit of difficulty. So Ganesh has had a big moment, and well, Bratton's had to take to the grass to avoid it. Taylor book out between them. Meanwhile, we've also got fighting going on here. Julian Jones just had an off, I believe, into the S's. It's all change of foot here, left, right, and centre at the moment. We'll get some replays of this shortly, but Shahi's hair is now up into 5th place. Can he chase down Blake Phillips with 7.5 minutes to go? Can he close down that 6-second gap? Well, I think he's going to need a bit of assistance to do that, but never say never, to be fair. We've seen bigger gaps come down in shorter periods of time. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we take a quick look back and understand what just exactly happened for several of our drivers, beginning with Roger Ganesh. Now, this is Roger Ganesh coming down to the S's. That Corvette looking okay. So what exactly did go wrong? The answer, the car coming loose on them now, under braking into turn 5. A bit too aggressive on the direction change and went to the gravel. Glenn Bratton, meanwhile, then came out the corner. And as he did so, I think Bratton ran to the grass there intentionally because, yes, Ganesh tried to come back across. He didn't realise until the last moment that Bratton was coming on through at full steam and Taylor book out with them. So they all just about avoided that one. And then we had this for Julian Jones. This was Jones made his way into turns 2, 3 and 4. And something tells me he's going to miss his braking zone here. No, he just carries too much speed, and then the car almost comes loose. Does he avoid the tyres? He grazes them. And that is the biggest near miss that you can ever have coming into the S's for Julian Jones. And well, Shahi Zahair being brave to go around the outside there. Many would back off, but not Zahair. And well, both drivers, they're getting away with it, no doubt about it. My goodness, they're keeping us guessing all the way to the end. And well, they're trying to make my heart jump out of its chest. It's already in my mouth. As we head back to our live racing. Coming back, not too many more laps to be accrued here, but right now every lap at this point is going to feel as though it's going to be a bit of a grueling task. The tyres on these cars will definitely now be feeling their wear. By the time you get towards the end of 45 minutes of racing, you're starting into the region around about what will be approximately 70% of tyre life left, depending on the car, the setup and how hard you've pushed. But the point being, effectively at this point of the distance, is now the tyres are getting to the point whereby to continue to improve your lap times, you have to really be considerate to the tyres. You can put a fastest lap in the race towards the end on this tyre set within 45 minutes. You can still do that, but you've got to really understand the tyre at that point and really take it through its cycling rather than just keep it at that constant level. Meanwhile, keeping it on the level, Roger Ganesh has Glenn Bratton and Taylor book out for company. They're trying to fight over 9th place here. As you do see the BMW and the Porsche behind. And what we have been trying to say, but every time we've gone to the side, something that's gone wrong for a Porsche 911 RSR driver, is the fact that this is mid-engine rear-wheel drive. It is the only modern Porsche racing car in the last 2 decades, if my memory serves me correctly, to be in that configuration. For reference, Porsche, of course, are the manufacturer that's all about the art of the corner. Rear engine, rear-wheel drive, where the engine is over the rear axle, whereas in the instance here, to comply with World Endurance Championship regulations, the car is mid-engine rear-wheel drive. So the engine is actually behind or towards the centre of the car from the rear axle rather than over it. And well, as they head on down, The back stretch here right now, rear axle or not. Well, Glenn Bratton right now 9. He's got both Bookout and Ganesh all over the back of him. And as they roar the way onwards, we can see Ganesh holding on for now with Bratton there getting close, but having to worry about the fact that Bookout is right there to capitalise. In fact, he comes on through there and well. Bookout does not need more than a second of an opportunity, and he's going to seize it as they go on to lap number 31 for these drivers. Of course, they are almost a lap down on the leaders. They are a lap down on the overall leader of Jason Landry, but their battle right now definitely becoming legendary in its own right. But now will Bookout go for 9th place? Can he get it back off of Ganesh, or is he going to have to settle behind the Corvette driver? Of course, it's two of the most comfortable machines out there. All these GTEs comfortable, to be fair, but the Porsche and the Corvette normally the #1 cars that are recommended if you're new to GTE racing, you want to pick a car. But as they come through turn number 5, well, right now Bookout trying to pick his way past that Corvette C8R, and well, it's going to look one way than the other, but the Stingray proving a bit too much to handle at the moment. On towards 6 and 7. We're right on board here with the number 99 driver. And well, for Bookout here, what can he do? Well, what he can do is get a better exit here, as that's going to be a big slide from Ganesh. And going on to the back stretch here, Bookout now building up the speed here. He will get fully alongside as he goes all the way out to the highest possible RPM. Looking back for the rear of the car, you can see he's clear behind because they're still side by side here as they head along. And well, it's going to be too wide all the way down towards the chicane. But Bookout on that outside here, surely it's going to be enough. Yes, it is. Ganesh does not have enough in the end on the brakes in order to be able to come back, but they both go deep, and in the end it turns into a rallycross moment. And will Taylor Bookout there running wide. He's got to avoid keep doing that because, of course, too many instant points, and suddenly it is going to be a trip to the pit lane for a drive-through penalty. When you've only got 10 instant points, which is essentially 10 off tracks, or 5 losses of control, or 2 contacts and 2 off tracks, then suddenly those instant points will be gobbled up as quick as that. Heading up the hill, no slowdown penalty to serve a Bookout. He's been able to get away with that. The more you cut a corner, of course, the higher the likelihood you will pick up a slowdown, although you can technically game the system a little bit, given that the slowdown system is based on a rolling lap average of the laps that you as a driver have set. So therefore, in the early stage of the race, having an off-track can be absolutely tantamount to disaster because you have no reference laps which the iRacing simulator is able to gauge against. Meanwhile, towards the end of the race, if you've pumped in the best part of 30 laps around the circuit and you have a tiny little off-track, the rolling lap average is going to be a bit more what is condensed down, and normally it will just be considered off track unless it's absolutely egregious, of which of course there are some default zones where if you cut the track too significantly, doesn't matter how much time you gain, iRacing will simply say you've cut the course, you know, you've got to give the time back. Jason Landry definitely not cutting the course right now, cutting no corners in this run to victory. Well, he is only now surely another 2 laps away from seeing that checker flag and an absolutely brilliant race in the all-gold machine. James Logsdon going up behind. What is the battling group there of Ganesh and Bookout, with Bratton having recently been passed. And right now his job is a simple one here, just bring on home that 2nd place. But Chad Henson, his Corvette, is keeping him honest there in the fight for 2nd place. It's great to see 3 different manufacturers in the top 3 spots, BMW, Ferrari and Corvette. And it just goes to show you the fact the balance of performance here in these GTE cars, one of the very best on the iRacing platform. That's why it's absolutely loved. Unfortunately, we aren't going to see our Porsches, alternatively our GTEs right inside that top 5. The 4 GTs, I should say. It does seem as though they're struggling a little bit today, and the driver's not having the happiest day in the office, but everyone's had some big highlight moments, no doubt about that. And I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gents, it's been a big jump for MPRL over the last couple of seasons. We've gone from some of the slower cars on the service, so of course the Porsche Cup car is probably our most aggressive car to drive, if you exclude the LMP3, and then we've gone to GTE for 2026. Our drive's definitely doing very well to adapt to some of the most challenging cars on the simulator in terms of getting used to them, but starting to feel comfortable with them, are they not? But James Logsdon going on to what will be very soon his final lap. He still does have Chad Henson closing. Henson is getting closer and closer, as meanwhile Blake Phillips has just lost full place there to show he's ahead. Now, what exactly has happened to him? Can we get a replay to understand? The answer is, I think, yes, we quickly can. And well, here we go for a quick trip back in time, ladies and gentlemen. What exactly happened to Blake Phillips? So this was Phillips heading in towards turns 6 and then 7. The 225 driver got a lovely run through there. Onto the brakes he went, and in the end came a bit too aggressive. I think an excess downshift there, and that sent the car sideways, and then he had to give the place up. So that explains the story, and Shahid Zaire was never going to waste that opportunity. But from then, let's go back to your live racing. And as we do, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are on to our final lap. We've got barely any time left in this one right now for all these drivers. And, well, as we do see your leader here is Landry with 20 seconds left on the clock. It will be a 35th and final lap of racing here. And he's aiming to bring us home now with 10 seconds left. Meanwhile, though that's here versus Phillips. Blake Phillips trying to come back here with Venom, chasing after his fellow BMW driver. They're both fighting for the right to be the best of the fourth place finishers. Who is going to be the better one of the two? Donald Sepek, 6.5 seconds behind. He's not going to be involved in this fight. He's a bit too far away to see it for the rest of the day. These two definitely nose to tail. Now, if you're a betting man, Blake Phillips needs a really good run coming out of turn and center. Otherwise, this may be all said and done. Half a second is the gap. But we're going to take a gap from them, ladies and gents, because coming over the hill for Jason Landry, well, we missed him towards the end of the Porsche Cup season last year, but he's back in full force today, and he takes victory here at the Michelin Raceway at Road Atlanta. Won the best part of 10 seconds overall in Pro, ahead of James Logston, who holds on to second place in the end for Team Bear Pope, and it will be Chad Henson who completes the overall Pro podium, and it's a further 10 seconds back to none other than Shahi Zahir. In his fight with Blake Phillips, he is going to hold on to the end, and Shahi Zahir will get the job done with Blake Phillips' late error costing dear. Donald Sepek will come on down the hill, and with it, he'll bring home his first Pro-Am win of the season on his debut. What a drive for the number 15 driver. Well done to him. And then we will see Gabriel Ferrero heading on down the stretch right now. And for Ferrero, it's in the race today. It's been up, it's been down, it's all been around. But as he makes way on down this back stretch, well, understandably, he's going to be bringing home a solid result soon as he does head towards that finish line. But the driver here in his Corvette will know there's some work to do still, but in the M&M machine right now, at least it is going to be a top 10 finish. Some good points to start off his season, and even more to come as the season rages on. He comes home in 7th place, and it will be Jermaine Warren who comes home, your runner-up in the Pro-Am class. Well done to him for MOP Racing. And then in 9th, it's going to be Taylor Bookout, who makes way into pit lane ahead of Roger Ganesh, but they were a lap down. We've still got a couple of drives to finish this race, ladies and gentlemen, including Carl Peterson, who comes across line there in 15th place. He's made it to the finish. He's happy with that one. And Mark Senegal's way, frustrating race for the Sunday GT Turtles driver. What was looking to be a glued-on chance for Pro-Am podium. In the end, it was 16th place overall at 7th in class. Things did not quite go right towards the end of the race. But as our driver's cooling down, and Jason Landry makes his way on in, surrounded by Chad Henson there. Well, in fact, he's going to cool down. He's going to enjoy this moment, of course, because this may be one of only a couple of rounds, if only the round he can make this season. And well, for Jason Landry, of course, he'll never be forgotten. One of the finest stars in the Middle Pack Racing League, and enjoyed himself with an opportunity to do some donuts here on the start finish straight. And well, we can't blame him for that, as I suspect he's turned the traction control off to make sure his wheels can spin up as much as possible, or he's trying to battle the electronics and using the grass there to help overturn the car. But as he has a bit of fun on the start finish straight, they'll try to find a way to get the car to go for a spin. Well, meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, we find a way to those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, after an absolutely epic opening race for our season in round number 1 of the Middle of the Pack Racing League GTE League 2026 here on iRacing, Jason Landry, your winner at the Michelin Raceway at Road Atlanta, the privateer, by 10 seconds in the end over James Logston. The Team Bear Poke driver bringing home 2nd place there, and Chad Henson was never too far behind. 1.6 seconds was the gap between the two of them, and Henson on his debut in the MPRL Racing Series bringing on home a podium. What a great effort from him. It was a top 3 there of a BMW, a Ferrari and a Corvette, but then we come to our first repeat manufacturer of a BMW, 2 or 3 of them in fact, from 4th through to 6th. In 4th, Shahi Zahir, taking that 4th place off of Blake Phillips right at the end there, and the Pit Club Sim Racing driver wasn't able quite to be able to take it back. That was your top 5, and it was a Pro-Am win for Donald Sepek. He will take home the 3 bonus points for the class win for Team Bear Pope there. What a drive for him, untouchable today in class, head of Gabriel Ferrero, the privateer, who was a further 29 seconds behind. Jermaine Warren's a further 3 seconds adrift there, but a very confident drive in his Porsche 911 RSR to a 2nd place in the Pro-Am, so he will bring home 2 bonus points on top of the 8th place finish, and the MOP Racing driver was the last lead lap finisher. It was a lap down to Taylor Bookout, the Team Bear Poke driver having that big brush of the wall right at the start of the race. Unfortunately, after that, it really set the tone and rate of his race. He was ahead of Roger Ganesh. They were your top 10. And with the Sunday GT Turtles driver in 3rd in the Pro-Am class, well done to him. He brings home an extra bonus point for his efforts. Glenn Bratton takes home 11th place there, 4th of your Pro-Ams, just a little bit further behind Ganesh. Couldn't quite close down to him at the very end, but he was ahead of Julian Jones and Eric Lagai. And then we did see Tom Bryce and Carl Peterson completing at the top 15. racing. It was a lap down as well, with a bit of misfortune for Mark Senegal for Sunday GT Turtles behind his teammate, and it was 3 laps down, but still he finished the race, and that's what we love to see for Bilman da Costa, the Team Bearpoke driver, who in the day got a little bit bitten by his Ferrari. Well, that concludes your rundown of the finishing positions, ladies and gentlemen, of course, subject to any steward inquiries. And with that, that concludes our racing here today at the Michelin Raceway at Road Atlanta. What a race we've had. It's definitely set the tone and the bar very high here as we make our way into an all-new season of racing. And of course, that's just round number 1 of our 8 rounds here. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now thinking to yourself, you know what, I've never driven a GTE before, but I want to do it in a league setting, because there's not many GTE leagues out there, and you would be absolutely right. GTE leagues are as rare as gold dust, but we are trying to make them happen, and we're definitely making one happen here in the Middle of the Pack Racing League, where if you want to join the community, and if you want to get on the grid, do join the official Discord. Invite link available on screen. You couldn't find a better place based in the North American continent, but open to anybody around the globe to go racing, whether it's a GTE, GR86s, you name it, the community will be more than happy to set up a series for it over the course of the future seasons. Alternatively, if you're a little bit shy of joining the community, perhaps you just want to follow the Middle of the Pack Racing League on social media, where you can follow us, of course, on Twitter at twitter.com/MOP Racing, the #1 place for all news and announcements and all things Middle of the Pack Racing League. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, what exactly is in store next? Because the US Cup has opened up on a bang today at Road Atlanta, but next time out, we make our way to the mecca of road racing in the US of A. We head to the Holy Grail circuit. It is, of course, round number 2, Watkins Glen International. We'll go to the state of New York, and there we'll get to see in the Village of Dix, our drivers absolutely take on one of the ultimate high downforce circuits in the globe, where the aim of the game is to be the king in the aim of the Need for Speed. But who exactly will fly high in 2 weeks' time at Watkins Glen? Well, the racing will occur on what will be none other than Thursday, the 12th of March 2026, but we invite you to come join us as if it were live on Saturday the 14th of March as we carry on the story. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.